Hi, this is Megan, Amani, Jamie, and Leah, and we are going to talk to you today about our paper about teaching matching to typically developing toddlers through PEAK. Previous research in verbal behavior has been heavily reliant on Skinner's theory of verbal behavior, such as the ABLS and the VB map. However, these assessments do not have enough empirical data to back them up since they are based on the theory of verbal behavior and not empirical data. In recent years, focus in language acquisition has shifted to stimulus equivalence. Stimulus equivalence refers to the emergence of untrained skills correlated with training on skills with related stimuli. Stimulus equivalency has been proven to be an important aspect of language acquisition, largely ignored in Skinner's verbal behavior. Research on stimulus equivalence has shown that matching pictures to the text words led to an emergent skill in being able to read those texts. It also increased problem-solving skills, and Green and Crowley taught people with brain injuries to remember important people's names. Fields taught college students statistics, and Rosales, Rayfeld, and Huffman taught language skills to preschoolers who are learning a second language. Dixon has developed a curriculum based on stimulus equivalency to teach language skills to students who have language delays, and this is based on a lot of empirical data. It is highly correlated with IQ scores and the Peabody vocabulary test. It has been compared to typically developing children to get normative data, and in 2015 a study was completed with 27 children to teach them language skills. It is also very easy to use and can be disseminated easily. So PEAK is designed for people to implement outside of behavior analysis as well as BCBAs, and there are positives to making it so easy to use in that children can get effective treatment that otherwise wouldn't have access to it. However, the downfall to that is that people who don't have a strong behavioral background and are implementing these treatments may not understand how to prompt the students correctly, which may lead to some prompt dependence. And this is an issue studied in the literature that compares the effectiveness of different prompting strategies, and there needs to be more research on individualized prompting strategies. There's a rich literature comparing 2 to 3 prompting strategies to try and identify the most effective prompting strategy. However, research has shown that the biggest factor to determine which prompting strategy is the best is individual differences. So, 3 prompting strategies that are popular in the literature include the constant prompt delay, which involves the instructor presenting the discriminative stimulus, waiting for a response, and counting to a set amount of seconds in their head, and then presenting the prompt. Simultaneous prompting is when the instructor gives the SD and immediately prompts. No prompting is when the instructor presents the SD and then for the first 2 incorrect responses says try again or no, and then they will give the prompt after on the 3rd attempt. So these prompting strategies have been compared in the literature, but the most important thing has been to identify individualized prompting strategies and to use them to teach further skills. So the purpose of this paper is to further prove the efficacy of PEAK and to identify the most effective and efficient prompting strategy for each participant, as well as to test that prompting strategy on teaching the matching skills to see if it is effective in teaching more skills.
The participants for this paper were all typically developing 12 to 18 month toddlers. We had Ron, 18 months, Leslie, 15 months, and April, 17 months. All were selected for this experiment because they were at risk for below average verbal acquisitions. All of the participants are currently enrolled at the daycare at the Child Development Lab, and these are our participants. All sessions were completed in the classroom setting during a regular school day at the Child Development Lab, with the typical staff members including teachers, aides, and undergraduate students. Preference assessments were done to determine the top 3 potential reinforcers, which was candy, cookie, and granola bars.
The dependent variable for both experiments was the percentage of correct responding. The independent variable for experiment 1 was the constant prompt delay, the simultaneous prompt, and the no-no prompting. For experiment 2, it was the implementation of the matched colors assessment from Peak.
The percentage of correct number of matched items with the corresponding colored flashcards was assessed during each of the observations. IOA was calculated with each of the observers. There was also a questionnaire used to assess social acceptance at the end of treatment and maintenance, and a checklist to assess procedural integrity.
The materials in experiment 1 included colored flashcards, and these are put into 3 sets of 10 for each prompting strategy. And the instructor laid them out in sets of 4 with 1 corresponding flashcards and instructed put with same. In experiment 1, this was done through a multi-element design, which means that all 3 prompting strategies were implemented at the same time, just with different sets of stimuli. And this was done to identify the most effective prompting strategy for each student. Measures of efficacy were determined by if the participants met criterion, which was 3 sessions of 100% responding. And efficiency was measured by the number of trials and the total number of session instructional minutes. And these are the results for experiment 1 for our first participant, Ron. And these are graphed on the x-axis is sessions, and on the y-axis is percentage correct. The constant prompt delay is depicted by the diamonds, the simultaneous prompt by squares, and the no-no prompt by circles. As you can see, the most effective prompting for Ron was the constant prompt delay, second simultaneous prompt, third no-no prompting. For Leslie, it is graphed the same way, and for her, she reached criterion first with the no-no prompt, second with the simultaneous prompt, and third with the constant prompt delay. These are results for April, and they are again graphed the same way, and you can see that she met criterion first with the simultaneous prompt, second with the no-no prompt, and third with the constant prompt delay. And this is consistent with previous research that shows that individuals have a wide variety of most effective prompting strategies.
For experiment 2, a multiple baseline design across participants was used. Treatment lasted approximately 4 months, and it was 10-minute sessions twice a week. A maintenance probe was conducted after 1 month, and a generalization probe was conducted across materials. The materials for experiment 2 included an array of 4 colored flashcards with corresponding colored items. During baseline, an array of 4 colored flashcards was placed in front of the child. The participant was asked to match or place with same. No feedback was given after response, regardless if the response was correct or incorrect. During intervention, the array of 4 colored cards was placed in front of the child. The child was handed a colored item and asked to put with same. Upon a correct response, a reinforcement was delivered, and an incorrect response resulted in no reinforcement and the optimal prompting strategy for each child. This is an example of what the intervention would look like. Upon correct response, a reinforcement was delivered. Upon incorrect response, the optimal prompting strategy was delivered, and upon the correct response after that, the reinforcement was delivered. The results showed that all participants showed below 10% correct responding during baseline. After training implementation, all participants reached a criterion of 90% or more for 3 consecutive sessions. Maintenance probe was conducted for all participants, showed that they all maintained correct criteria of responding. Generalization probe showed that all skills generalized across materials. And this is a graph that shows our results for experiment 2. The x-axis shows the number of sessions, and the y-axis shows the percentage of correct responses. Treatment was implemented as soon as stable rate of responding was achieved during baseline for the first participant. When the first participant showed stable responding, in the treatment phase, the treatment was implemented for the next participant, and so on until all participants received treatment.
Results suggest the implementation of PEAK was an effective method to teach matching the sample procedure and increasing the likelihood of language acquisition. Our study coincided with the results of previous studies in PEAK relational training that it's not only an effective tool for implementing match to sample, but also for facilitating language acquisition. Although researchers showed experimental control, the study contained some limitations. The first was that only 3 participants were in this study, meaning the results could not be generalized outside of the population, warranting future research to include a larger number of participants. The second was the lack of control over other interventions happening at the child development lab at the same time. Other interventions could influence the behavior of the participants either positively or negatively. Future research could use a population of children not involved in other interventions. This limitation also extended to the home because researchers lacked control over parental implementation of matching or related tasks. Future research could discuss the ethics of asking parents and teachers to hold all interventions or to search for populations of children whose parents did not implement teaching strategies in the home. And our last but not least limitation was that researchers did not generalize across settings. Future research could address testing and teaching the PEAK program in multiple settings. A multiple baseline design across settings could be used to test and then subsequently teach PEAK in many important settings, including the home and other daycare centers.